All right, so it doesn't look like there's anybody here yet, but I thought I'd just say something for the chat. Sorry, for the replay. If anybody um, watches the replay, um, yeah, I just popped on to do a quick live stream. We'll see what happens. Um, I will do some where I schedule the live stream ahead of time um, to make it easier for more people to join. Might not be a bad idea because when I just pop on, um, sometimes there's not a lot of people, and I need you guys to ask me some questions for the live stream. Um, it's always cool to do some meditation as well. So um, if there's not a lot of people, then I'll just sit here and meditate, and anybody's welcome to join me. So yeah, we'll just see what happens. If anybody does show up and has any questions, you're welcome to just pop them in the chat. You can ask anything really. I'm happy to talk about anything. And yeah, if there's not a lot of questions, then we can just sit, really. And I invite anybody who's watching or who's watching the replay, you can use this time. A lot of what I talk about on my channel is learning to distract ourselves less and feel into what we're avoiding more, because that's the only reason we need to distract, is because there's something we don't want to feel. If we stop for a while and put away the distractions, and then when we feel like we want to do something because we're bored, it's if we're really honest with ourselves, it's because there's something we don't want to feel. And specifically, if someone's struggling with a chronic illness or something like that, often a lot of difficult things in experience that we're trying to get rid of. But what I share a lot on this channel is, from my experience, what really was important for me was learning that it was fighting what was an experience that was this whole problem. It was the mind saying that there's a problem here and I need to find a way to get rid of this. And I did for a long time, tried every single thing to not have those uncomfortable experiences there anymore. And it got worse and worse the harder I tried, right? The more I was like, I'm going to fight this, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get better. The worse it got, because I was just seeing more and more that I had no control over this, right? I couldn't fight it. And what I eventually learned was that I had to just open up to what was here. And it was my own resistance to what was here that was so uncomfortable, because there was just what was happening, whatever it was, be it thoughts, emotions, symptoms, or sensations in the body. And then there was all this belief and thought about what should be happening, right? I never used to feel like this. It shouldn't be like this. I should feel this. I should feel that. And it's naturally going to, I mean, if this kind of thing is happening to somebody, either these difficult experiences, it's naturally going to be like, part of us is going to fight it, right? We're just like, why is this happening? What's going on? And maybe we'll fight it for as long as we need to, until we start, and maybe it's from somebody talking about their experience like I'm doing, or we come upon it ourselves, or you try meditation, or you read a spiritual book or something, starting to realize that you kind of have to feel into the experience and be with what's here. So what I just to wrap up what I was saying here is you can use if you come pop onto the live stream at all and you don't have a question, um, and maybe there's times where there's no questions to answer, then we can just sit, and I invite anybody to just feel into uh, their experience and feel into if you're trying to change your experience, because that's the first obvious sign that we're resisting something. Is if we're changing it, we're trying to make it's control, right? We're trying to control what's here and make it into something else because we don't like what's here. And that's fine if you notice that, if you're aware of that's what you're doing. I mean, often we're not. So that's kind of the first step is like, can I, or when you notice that, so maybe me talking about it, maybe you had a little bit of experience with this, but maybe you noticed like, oh, I don't actually want this to be here. I want to change it. Just noticing that is the first step and being honest with ourselves. Okay, wow, I'm resisting this, and then just feel into it. So these live streams are kind of like a Q&A, but also an opportunity to like, it can often be easier to take this time to sit with what you don't want to sit with, if you know other people are doing the same thing, right? That's why I enjoy this as well, is doing the guided meditations or meditating. It's really nice to do it with other people that are. It can really help to in your own experience to take that time to go inward a bit, if there's like a shared intention. So I see we've got a first question here. Hive Insanity. Glad that you could join us. Hi Kyle, I agree that what resists persists. Do you have any suggestions for embracing whatever you're feeling rather than fighting it in the moment? So that's a great question. That's a very good question, and that's exactly what I want to talk about here. So, do you have any suggestions for embracing whatever you're feeling rather than fighting it in the moment? And kind of along the lines of what I was just saying, I would start by noticing that you're fighting it, right? So if you're sitting there and you're aware, maybe you're trying this, so like, okay, I need to stop resisting or whatever. So, so a great place to start, and it was kind of like an inquiry practice for me, was what am I resisting? And it was such an easy, not easy, but like what was easy for me to know that I was resisting something was if I'm feeling uncomfortable, if feel like I'm having a crash, if I'm having symptoms, even not in the context of chronic illness, if I'm struggling with my current experience, and that I'm like, oh, I'm resisting something, right? And for a long time, I didn't even know that. It was kind of after being on this journey that I was going through, this like stripping away through the chronic illness and this kind of awakening path of meditation and inquiry into experience, learning that it's all about resistance, right? It's all about resistance. There's only ever a problem because we're trying to control and change. So just to say, we can start noticing that. Maybe we didn't even notice it for a long time. Like, oh my gosh, there's only a problem because I'm resisting something. So that can be a great thing to do, is if you don't know what to do. And often people feel like that, that I'm so confused, I don't know what to do about symptoms, about emotions, about thoughts. Okay, what am I resisting? Let's just start there. And then, often it's a feeling in the head, a feeling in the body, a specific thought. And we can kind of just open up a little bit to letting it come to us, right? Maybe a thought comes and says, I don't know what I'm resisting. And then you get upset about having that thought, like, oh, this is frustrating. Like, I don't know how to do this. in essence, we're kind of resisting that thought then, right? Because then we're like, oh no, or that feeling of not knowing what to do. That's just what you're resisting then. So that's just how to start. What am I resisting? And then often how I go about this is, can I find what feels the most uncomfortable thing right now that I don't want to feel? And it can often be quite a good way to get to this is, so let's say I want to sit down and meditate for like 10 minutes, or it doesn't even have to meditate. Like if I'm feeling uncomfortable and like, okay, I'm going to sit and feel this for 5 minutes, then I'm doing it, and then I want to get up and distract myself. It's like, okay, can I really feel what makes me want to go up and distract myself? It's like, really, I'd approach it with a lens of curiosity. Like, this is an inquiry we're doing. Is just like, what don't I want to feel? That's them resisting something, and we don't even have to force ourselves to embrace it. It can just be like really getting curious. Like, what don't I want to feel? Like, if I went to the most uncomfortable part of my experience, the thing I really don't want to feel, what it does that feel like? And can I explore it a bit? Can I let it be there? And it's really about not trying to make anything happen. That's the thing. Maybe we've done this a few times. Maybe you've heard about somebody else speaking about how it helps get rid of their symptoms or something. And then we can come into it with a sort of expectation of getting rid of the symptoms, or calming the mind or calming the body. And it's such an easy trap to fall into. I mean, and we will do it. We'll sometimes find ourselves starting there. I've had that so many times where I'm like, oh yeah, I know, okay, I'm resisting something. I know that if I take the time to feel it and really feel it, like really just let it be there without trying to do something to it, then I know, or I've had the experience before that it kind of resolves itself. But here's the key, is we can't really go into it. I mean, we can and we will, but going into it with the intention of I'm doing this because I know it will make this feel better, it's resistance still. That's still coming from a place of trying to change the experience, right? It's like, I'm going to feel into this uncomfortable experience in order to get rid of it. But it can be tricky, sometimes we don't even know we're coming from this place. So that's where just being honest with yourself is key, is just like, okay, what am I feeling? What am I resisting? And if you notice that, that's fine. I mean, it's not about making anything happen. There's not really like a wrong way to do this. I mean, of course, as I'm saying, there's things to watch out for and stuff, but what we're really doing is just being with what's here. So, notice if we're coming in with the intention of, okay, I want to get rid of this. Then the next thing, often we react to that and we're like, no, that's wrong. I mustn't do it like that. But again, that's just more reacting on resistance, whereas it's just about noticing, oh, okay, that's what's happening now. So, oh, okay, I'm trying to change my experience. Okay, there's a part of me that is still wanting this to not be here. So I'm doing this not resistance practice, and there's a part of me that is doing this to change the experience. Okay, I'm aware of that, right? Because as soon as we're aware of that, we're not unconsciously, maybe it's still kind of there, but we're not aware of it, right? That's the first step, is that's just the next thing to notice. And then just keep feeling it. It's really a feeling thing. It's like, okay, that's interesting. I'm still resisting here, but what don't I want to feel? And then just to start off, sometimes we can do this by setting a timer or something. So if we're going through our day and we noticing something building up that we don't want to feel, and often for me the obvious giveaway is like kind of rushing things a little bit, and just like tension starts to build up and it's distracting, right? It's like, oh, I want to do the next thing, and like thinking into the future, okay, I'm going to do this next, I'm going to do that next, and it's like, okay, there's something building up that I'm not wanting to feel, so that's why I'm looking for ways to distract myself. And then to just make the decision. So when you notice that, you can make the decision to go on to the next distraction. And sometimes we'll do that because, sometimes it's just like, I want to distract myself. But the funny thing is, and I can say this from my own experience, is that never works, right? I will keep doing that and it will get worse. It will build up until I'm like, okay, I have to sit with this now. So anyways, but sometimes what really helps is to just make a small commitment to be like, I'm going to feel this for a short period of time. So, it can be, I should meditate now, but I'd rather go watch TV. I'd rather go on Twitter. I'd rather, whatever method we're using to distract, I'd rather go onto my emails. I'd rather do this. I'd rather do that. But there's something that you're uncomfortable with. Because again, if we're honest with ourselves, why are we looking for something to occupy ourselves with? It's because if we just stop and feel, there's a little something that's not welcome. And so making a commitment, can I spend 3 minutes? So it doesn't have to be 3 minutes. It's like, whatever, find a time period that you can do. But I would recommend like 3 minutes or 5 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. Just start with something small and be like, okay, I'm going to set a timer on my phone, because again, like that's committing to it. I'm going to put away distractions. So that's again a good first step. It's like, okay, just for the next 3 minutes, I'm not going to distract myself, and I'm going to start to feel into it. And then I would do these inquiries that I've spoken about earlier. Is what am I resisting? What is the most uncomfortable thing in my experience right now? And then just starting to feel into it more. Notice if you're getting up in the head, if you're in thoughts, that's fine. And then try to come back to just feeling. And yeah, it just starting with like doing that. Each time it happens, okay, instead of running away, I'm going to face this for 3 minutes. And then maybe after the 3 minutes timer has gone off, you're like, I can sit here for a little bit longer. So then maybe next time you do 5 minutes, and then maybe you do 10 minutes. And then it's still really always helpful to use a timer, I find, because it just kind of commits that period. It's like, okay, I'm going to sit with the timer now. But a practice I like to do is like, once the timer's gone off, can I just carry on sitting here? And then whenever I feel like I want to get up and, okay, I'm done now, because the timer's gone off, right? So there's no fixed commitment anymore. It's like, okay, that's interesting. Like what's normally happened is I've grabbed onto a thought, right? So it's like I'm feeling, and then it gets a bit uncomfortable, and then thoughts, and then I'm like, oh, okay, let me go make a cup of tea, or let me go do this. And then I can be like, oh, that's another thought. Can I just keep sitting here? What happens if I keep sitting here? Because again, it's like, why can't I just keep sitting here? And you don't always have to do it like that, but that's a nice way to just get more and more comfortable with sitting for a little bit longer. And what happens is, once we start to respond in this way, it becomes easier with time. And sometimes, so what I mean here is, once we start to open up to meditation and feeling into the body and this kind of awakening process of no longer repressing stuff, it can feel like it gets worse, in the sense of, now that repressed material will start to come out. The stuff that we've been repressing for so long, it will start to come out. Maybe during meditation, often after a couple of days, or a nice, really peaceful period where you're just whatever you're sitting in, it starts to feel more peaceful and open, and that then maybe a little bit later on, the repressed stuff can start to come up. So in that sense, it can be a complete roller coaster. But what I mean by it gets easier is we start to orient towards this in a different way, and we become more aware of when we're resisting, and like, okay, I know nothing terribly bad is going to happen if I just sit and feel this, right? Often there's a lot of fear stopping us from really feeling into the uncomfortable stuff, because maybe there's thoughts going on in the mind saying, whatever you do, don't go there. Like, it's just don't go there. We're so used to this habituated response of not feeling the uncomfortable stuff. Of, okay, I'm going to go for a run to get rid of that feeling. Exercise is what we normally do. Lots of other things of like how to not feel those things. But once you start to open to it more, it gets easier with time. So the more you do this, that's why I'd say like being patient with this work is really important as well, because it's not going to change like that. It's still going to be uncomfortable to feel these things, but the more and more we feel into it, it's kind of relaxing those patterns that we've gotten stuck in of resisting. And then also the more we feel the repressed material that comes up, it's like an up and out process, right? So it's like a processing of that stuff that we don't want to feel. So yeah, that's my method on working with the the whole idea in general of how to work with what you don't want to feel, and how to go about feeling it as opposed to fighting it. And again, I'd say just be patient with this stuff, and remember that it's not about like a path of progress of like, oh, today things are feeling really good, and then the next day things are feeling really contracted and resisting and tense and uncomfortable. It's like, what this can be such a helpful thing to realize is like, that's not a bad sign at all. Like, that's a really natural part of this process, that these repressed emotions, it can be emotions, it can be thoughts, it can be like physical stuff, it can be like that's why this whole chronic illness, physical symptoms, we can label it as all this. These are symptoms of a chronic illness, but often it's often got a lot to do with emotional repression and trauma stored in the body, that eventually it gets too much, and something can trigger this whole process of this chronic illness journey or whatever. But just to realize that it will be up and down, and just to have patience. Like, each time we just open up to feeling, it gets easier, and it's like we're doing the work, right? That's the way, but we have to be willing each time to come to it with fresh eyes, right? It's like, not I know where this is going to go, and again, we're going to have to catch that part of ourselves, because it kind of develops. It's like the mind or the ego loves to grab onto any technique and try to rigidly apply it, because especially if it works, in some way. Okay, how do I repeat this experience? So next time we do it, it's like, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. But each time, it's really just about opening up to what's here. Kind of like, can I let life or whatever, can I let it show itself to me, right? And not about making something happen. It's like, can I let whatever needs to come forward come forward? Yeah. So I see we've got a few more people who have joined us. If anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the box. Otherwise, you can just use this time to just do some of that work of what's here. And what am I fighting? And can I explore whatever it is I'm fighting? And what if I kind of just let that come forward a bit more, or just let yourself feel that? And it can be scary, it can be uncomfortable, it can feel like the last place you want to go. That can be a good pointer of where to go. What is the last place you want to go? Because it is, because everything else we're doing is to not go there, right? Any other reason we come up with not to do this work or to just feel is because we want to, it's the last thing we want to feel. But it's what we think is the last thing we want to feel, but it's actually, when we really fully allow ourselves to feel it, it's actually all we wanted was to feel it. It's actually all that experience wanted, that really scary, whatever it is, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, all it wants is to be felt, right? All that we need to do is let it in. And that's why I often say it can be really helpful to kind of nurture the experience, or like self-soothing. But we can speak directly. This can be another helpful way to do this work, is we can speak directly to whatever we're afraid to face. So all that it wants is to be felt. So can we offer it that space? So whatever it is, whatever it is we feel like we're resisting or fighting or want to change, can I give the space for whatever wants to be here? But the funny thing is, we can so often do this with an agenda of what is supposed to be here. It can feel like, I'm not doing this right, or I'm resisting, so this is bad. But that's just what's here. So that's really the thing, is there's nothing that's not welcome. And it can often take a while before we can really kind of feel this. I remember for me, it was like, it was for a long time, it was like, yeah, but not this, but not that. And then, one time I just fully gave myself to it, and it was like, like even the fear of what if this comes up, that's okay too. Because that's often what catches us, is like, okay, I'm going to do this work, but I'm doing it to get rid of this or to not feel that. And when we realize that even that is welcome as well. So even the fear of whatever, even the resistance, even if we notice resistance, it's like, okay, even that's welcome. And then it can start to relax. But we're taking off that first, like just doing this work of opening up is taking off that first layer of resistance. So like, don't resist the resistance. It's like, okay, if resistance is here, resistance is here. And then can you just, so what I was talking about was the self-soothing. Can you kind of say, okay, resistance, you want to be here, like you're welcome to be here. I accept you just as you are. I'm not trying to change you. You're welcome. Like there's enough space here to express yourself. Can I give this space for whatever needs to be felt, whatever wants to be felt? Because whatever is in your experience is what wants to be felt. You don't choose what comes up, right? Can I give that space to? Can I welcome it? It's okay. If you're afraid, if fear comes up, it's okay. Fear, you're welcome. And I've repressed you for so long, right? I've fought against these experiences for so long. But you know what? It's like, actually, you can be here. It can be such a relief to realize that this is just a part of experience, right? It's actually a part of ourselves that needs to be felt. And we fought it for so long. But can you just let it be there? So that can be really helpful. Hi, Dylan. I'm currently dealing with long COVID. How do you deal with the insane body weakness when all that you want to do is get back to life? How do you try to harness that? So, Dylan, what I really talk about, and what I was kind of just talking about for the last little bit on this live stream, is really, and it can take a lot before we're willing to do this. But for me, so I'll start by talking from my own experience. At first, it was like, how do I get rid of all of these symptoms, right? I need to be, my life was one way, like exercising and working and studying and socializing and whatnot. And then all of this that's here now is stopping me from having that life. But what was kind of happening is, and again, like it took me like a year of trying to fix this thing, until I was absolutely like completely broken and nowhere left to turn, and just wanted to give up. Like I can't do this anymore. My whole life has been taken away from me, all of that. Until then, I started to find my way through this, and it was only once I started to feel into what was here and realize that the problem was me fighting this experience. And again, this can be really not what somebody wants to hear, right? But so just in that specific situation, what I would recommend is, so you notice you're feeling really insane body weakness, and all you want to do is get back to life. Okay, that's fine. And notice if there's an emotional charge to that, right? If there's anger or frustration or fear, that this weakness, this body weakness is, it's taken these things away from me. It's whatever. But often it really doesn't matter too much what the thoughts are about the emotional charges, but just noticing that there's emotion tied up in there. Often what really needs to happen is that emotion needs to be felt, right? So these experiences can start to bring up this emotional repression, which I think is a large part of these chronic illnesses. It can be triggered by something like COVID, but it's a lot of emotional repression that puts a lot of strain on the nervous system, and that puts a lot of, there's a lot of books that I read going back through my whole journey of learning how, oh my gosh, it's all like this psychological strain and this emotional strain can put a lot of strain on our physical body as well. So I would really say you've got to start with what's here now, right? So that's kind of I've made a video about this a while back. Um, the work is simple in the sense that what you need to work through is always what's here. And it can often feel like the last thing that you want to feel, or the last, or the thing that's pissing you off the most, or whatever, the most unfair bit of this. But that's often where you need to start, right? So if where you're starting at is this um, insane body weakness, and then, but what's key to see here is how are we feeling about this weakness? What are the beliefs formed onto it? And that's where I was saying the emotional stuff can be important. So, this is stopping me from having my life back. And yeah, like I had to realize that this whole time I was fighting these experiences, and the way I was fighting it was believing that if I got my old life back, that's all I wanted. But if I'm honest, and I wasn't honest with myself a lot of the time, is that you eventually start to believe these thoughts. But the truth was that, and it can be so difficult when you're in that place, like all you want is your life back. But like I know for myself that before I got this whole chronic illness experience, long COVID, chronic fatigue, whatever, I wasn't like that. Life was, sure, it was cool, but there was always a part of me that was looking towards a better life in the future, right? So what you going through right now, really, I would start by just feeling what you need to feel. So if there's so much frustration about this body weakness and this illness, and if there's so much fear and resistance and whatever, I would start with that. Okay, what are the beliefs about this? What are the emotions that are here? And knowing that it's okay to feel that. Like if you just want to like break down and cry, that's fine. A lot of this is about feeling the stuff we don't want to feel. And then, if you like I recommend meditation a lot because it's a way of just stopping and feeling what's here, which can be a really important part of this process. And then what can help is we start to see how crazy the mind is, and how it's all the thoughts that are, it's the thoughts that make it's the belief in the thoughts that makes the experiences so difficult, because the thoughts will come and go, and eventually we can start to just see a thought as a thought. So a thought saying, I hate this is the worst thing that ever happened to me, all I want is to get my life back. Oh, okay, there's a thought. That's just a thought. It really doesn't matter what the content is. But then often there'll be an emotional charge with that thought, right? So, okay, that's like anger. Can I feel into the body? Yeah, okay, I'm feeling anger. But we stop believing that the thoughts are true, and that's can be super helpful. So that's why meditation is a great place to start. Because for the one reason is it's starting to do that work of just feeling into what's here. And then if it's fear, it's fear. If it's anger, it's anger. And then noticing that when those thoughts come up, it's like, oh, that's just a thought. Like I remember having really trouble sleeping at one period, and then the thoughts would come like, oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind, I'm going crazy. And I really believed that thought. I was so scared, I started, it can be so scary when we really believe the thoughts, and that's where we all start, right? I mean, that's how most of us are living our lives, is just in this constant stream of thought that is us. But it's really, that's why this whole journey was a great opportunity for me, because it started with a lot of suffering, and this was the worst thing that ever happened to me, and all of these physical symptoms. But what it really was an awakening journey of waking up out of that dream of thoughts and like, oh my gosh, that's where I was the whole time, but none of those thoughts are actually real. Um, so that can be really helpful as well. Like all these thoughts about it, um, you know, first it's like we don't need to control the thoughts. You know, it's okay. Whatever thoughts come, they can be there, but just starting to notice a thought as a thought. Um, yeah, so just taking time to feel into the body and, you know, if there's weakness, feel that. Really starting to explore the symptoms because, but again, it can take a long time. So, you know, take it easy on yourself. If you know, if what I'm saying doesn't resonate, that's fine as well. We often have to try different paths until, like for me, I tried everything until nothing worked, and the only way was doing the inner work, and that's what worked eventually because that it was all about this repression. But what can be really helpful to know as well is that, you know, if we talk about physical pain, just because it's an easy one to talk about, it's like pain is a intense sensation, a really intense sensation, and it's only a problem if we resist it, right? So there's a famous saying, I think it's from, I've heard a lot of different people quote who it's originally from, but saying suffering is equal to pain times resistance. And if we can learn to really feel into what we're resisting, the suffering really decreases. And a lot of the time with something like this, with a chronic illness like long COVID, something that's out of our control, we have to start with, okay, can I feel these symptoms, right? But to know that a lot of people, when I talk about this acceptance work, what comes up is fear in the form of like, so I just have to accept this, you know, it's going to be like this forever. And there's different ways to answer this because, in a sense, you kind of need to accept, be willing to feel it, that it's going to be there forever, but it's not going to be there forever, right? But that's kind of the place I got to was like, okay, I have to feel this, but knowing that there was, you know, then I was really learning a lot about meditation and awakening and just this other perspective, and realizing that I just needed to face my shit, right? The path out was in, right? The way through all of this is right into the heart of the storm, right into the scariest places. So maybe the mind will say, you know, I can't accept this. I don't want to feel like this forever. And I can say to you, if we start to feel into this, it's not going to be like that forever. That's one of the biggest things that makes this so difficult. If I remember for myself, it was on the tough days, it was like, I'm never going to recover. I'm going to be stuck with this forever. But it's not like that. You just have no idea how much things are going to change. It's really a journey into the unknown. And it's the beliefs about past and future that are, that make it the most difficult. If we're always just like, let me just face what's here. It doesn't matter about what was here for the last year. And obviously, you know, me saying this, it can be difficult, but just an approach to take is, it doesn't matter. I have no idea what the future is going to bring, right? We never, the future in a sense doesn't exist in the sense that it's completely unknown, right? Whatever, you don't know what the next noise is that you're going to hear. You don't know what the next word is that's going to come out of my mouth. It's just going to happen, right? But like if I remember for the most difficult periods, it was so difficult because I thought it was going to be like that forever. But I had no idea that in a month's time things were going to change completely. So looking back on it, the difficult times didn't last that long, but they felt so difficult at the time because the mind was saying they were going to last that long. So yeah, just starting with the acceptance work of, so to go back to pain, it's like, if I have something that's at first really painful, at first there's a lot of resistance. Like, well, that's really uncomfortable. I don't want to feel that. Um, but okay, there's pain here right now. Maybe it's a headache. Maybe, I hurt myself on something. As soon as I start to feel into that pain curiously, okay, like, I really don't want to feel this. And pain, it can often be really difficult because we're kind of hardwired to not feel pain, or to not want to feel pain. But even while there's resistance, once I start feeling into the raw sensations of the pain, it's not so much of a problem. And then it immediately becomes really uncomfortable again once I'm back in the thoughts thinking about the pain, and thinking about how I don't know how long this is going to be here, right? I don't know when this pain is going to go away. So I would recommend, whatever your symptoms are, as a place to start is, can you curiously explore your symptoms? So what about this muscle weakness is so uncomfortable? And again, there's obviously so many things that are scary about it. Again, there's so many emotions tied up in it. But if I just take 10 minutes just to explore the pure sensations, so it can be like a meditation or whatever. What does it actually feel like? What are the sensations of this? And can I just feel what it is curiously? That's where I'd recommend starting. And then be open to the emotions that come up with this, right? It's completely okay. We just got to feel. All right. Hi, Johannes. Can you give some book recommendations specifically that helped you for your long COVID recovery and brought you to the insights that you're sharing with us? Great question, and I would love to. So there's different things to explore. So there was like lots of different areas that I focused on. So different books. So what I will say is it depends on where a person's at, on what book recommendation is going to be most helpful for them. So if I look back into the period in my journey where I needed to realize that this was not a physical thing that could only be cured by some medical breakthrough into understanding what COVID had done to the body and how to clear out the spike proteins and stuff. For a long time there was those beliefs that that was the only way out. And then I think it started with recovery stories, so hearing about how people's perspectives on recovery played such a big role. And then I started to read books that spoke about how you can heal yourself, in the sense that it's really about the beliefs and the attitude towards this illness that's so important. So some of the books that I read was The Brain That Changes Itself by Norman Doidge, which is all about neuroplasticity and understanding that the brain can get stuck in certain patterns, and but the ability to rewire the brain it's the brain's completely plastic, right? So that was and in that book they talk a lot about people recovering from things that they didn't think they could recover from. So stroke, I remember there's a lot about stroke patients who a certain part of their brain died off, and then so maybe it was the visual thing or motor control, and then they learned through specific brain retraining how to walk again or whatever. And then so for the one patient, they didn't realize the extent of the brain damage from their stroke until they died, and basically the patient had recovered to being able to completely be playing golf again and everything. And when they died, it was like half their brain had, I can't remember the specifics, but it was incredible. They were like, how the hell was it possible that this person was able to get back to that functionality? And it was because the brain's able to rewire itself in different ways. But that was like an early stage book for me, and the key from it was just changing my beliefs about recovery. So realizing, I kind of gotten stuck in this place of, I'm stuck. Everything I read about chronic fatigue syndrome and long COVID was so hopeless, and I'm not going to recover. And then reading these books about I was starting to realize that this was kind of a nervous system thing, and how the nervous system is so adaptable and can be changed. So that was a starting point for me. Another book I read was, so that was Norman Doidge. I read, it was called Your Mind Can Heal Your Body, or How Your Mind Can Heal Your Body, by, can't remember the author, but that was also a really helpful book, again, along similar lines. A lot of science behind how certain practices help people recover from cancer and reduce inflammation in the body and all of that, just from the associated mental states, right? So again, that's along the more science aspect. There's eventually the books that were the most helpful were the books more about the inner work of meditation and awakening and spiritual kind of insights. But I started there, right? And I think I needed to start there because I was very analytical and fixated on science as the only way forward. So if that's where someone is, I would recommend starting there, right? Start with other books that I've heard really good things about is Bruce Lipton, I think his name is, a book about the biology of belief, about how the beliefs we have actually affect the body on a genetic level. It actually affects the DNA and the genes of the body, and different genes will be turned on and off if we hold different beliefs. And he's a famous neuroscientist or something like that. Like, there's a really good science behind it. So there's a lot of books like that, and so I've heard of Bruce Lipton's book. Those kind of books, realizing like, oh, okay, this has really all got to do with my perspectives on this recovery and that. So that's the one aspect. And there's a lot of good books. Like, I'll just have a look around: Bruce Lipton, Norman Doidge, if somebody's really fixated in that place. But that was a stepping stone, and eventually, I've spoken about this before in my video about brain retraining courses and all of that, and positive thinking. It was initial realization of, okay, I need to change the way I'm thinking about this. Eventually, with all of the meditation, diving more into that aspect, I realized it was all about not trying to control things at all, right? Because eventually I got stuck there as well. So it's like, how do I only have the positive thoughts and not the negative thoughts? How do I because a lot of that brain retraining focused and healing your own body with your mind stuff is focused on positive thinking, positive visualizations, and that helped for a while. But again, that wasn't it, right? I got stuck there because I couldn't control how I was feeling all the time, right? And it was this fighting again of thoughts of, there's a negative thought, I shouldn't feel that. There's a negative emotion, I shouldn't feel that. So then the more spiritual meditation inner workbooks that were the most powerful, I started with the Waking Up app from Sam Harris was like my introduction into the spiritual path, into meditation, which again was a great introduction for me because I was very analytical, intellectual, scientific. So Sam is he's a very, I'm sure a lot of people know who he is, but if anybody doesn't, he's a very rational science guy. So it's a great way into the path for somebody like that, it's yeah, it was like, okay, my introduction into it, and it's coming from such um, a, a place that I was willing to hear it from, if that makes sense. So I read his book, Waking Up, which is a great book. Um, but still, then the more important books, and eventually the book that changed everything was Awake, It's Your Turn by Angelo DeLullo. I've spoken about Angelo quite a few times on the channel, and he's got a YouTube channel as well. And I remember reading that book, and afterwards, it was just, again, it kind of had to do, that's why I say it's really important where somebody's at, right? So for me, after having read all the things I'd read and in the place I was at that time, that book was the most powerful catalyst in, it was just exactly what I needed to read. So it's such a great book. So Angelo DeLullo, it's everything I talk about, the emotion work, the work with thoughts, not resisting, all of that is applying what I learned from Angelo. But it is more of it's a really touches into the deeper self work, right? So it's really about awakening, awakening from the dream of thoughts, right? So if somebody's dived into meditation a bit and a bit of spirituality, they'll maybe have been introduced to this topic of awakening, spiritual awakening, or enlightenment, or maybe just interested in calming the mind and suffering less. Especially if you're going through a very difficult thing, a way out of suffering, right? Surely there has to be a way out of suffering, and that's what this awakening is. It's getting to the roots of what's causing suffering, and it's through meditation and inquiry, and it's really unique to everybody, the journey, but it's really getting to the roots of what's causing it. And again, as I've said before, it's resistance, it's belief in thoughts, it's belief in an individual that has control over experience, but instead there's just life, there's just experience. So that's a incredibly powerful book, but maybe for some people they're not in a place where it's going to resonate. It can just bounce off potentially. Maybe it doesn't make sense or something. Other books, and what kind of happened is eventually I realized that the work I needed to do was here, right? So for a long time it was I needed to learn stuff. I needed to know exactly all of this. So listening to lots of podcasts and books and that. But eventually, once I read Angelo's book, it was, I didn't read many books after that, and even that book I read very slowly, because it's about 5 to 10% about what's there, and 90% of doing the inner work yourself. Doing the practices, just feeling, doing the work. So Adyashanti is another spiritual teacher who has very good books. And what I like about Angelo and Adyashanti is their work is very accessible. Specifically Angelo, he really doesn't use a lot of spiritual terminology. He doesn't speak from a spiritual tradition like Buddhism, or he's got experience in Zen or whatever, but he's just focused on what doesn't matter what your beliefs are. It doesn't matter what your background is. You can just investigate your own direct experience. You don't have to believe anything. Adyashanti is very much like that as well, and he's got some incredible books. I've read Falling into Grace, which it's a really good book. It's about all these insights into I think it's called Falling into Grace, Insights on the End of Suffering. Highly recommend. There's lots of good books, spiritual books that I haven't read. I know The Power of the Now by Eckhart Tolle is very good. I've heard it recommended by a lot of people that I trust, and good teachers, and a lot of people. It's a great introduction to the deeper inner work, spiritual stuff, spiritual awakening, the The Power of the Now, any of Adyashanti's books. I'm currently listening to another one, True Meditation, which is great book on meditation. And I'm just trying to think of any others. But yeah, there's kind of the two sides to it. So the one is realizing that it can all just be about thoughts and beliefs and stuff, and then there's the deeper meditation, awakening stuff. So yeah, also I read a few other. I read. It's called The Mind Illuminated. Was a good book for specifically developing a meditation practice, but it was really helpful at the time. But it can be a little bit too path focused. Of these different steps in your meditation path, and yeah, some people can get stuck in that in seeking, but it was very helpful for me. I read like the first 2 or 3 chapters, and it really helped me to develop a meditation practice that I then started doing for a couple of hours a day, and then eventually I let go of that fixed, rigid approach. But it was a great book. If I think of any others that were really good, I will let you know. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you like the Waking Up app and Adyashanti's books, then definitely check out Angelo Deludo's. I mean, so you interested in that aspect of things, Angelo's is great as well. And yeah. Sorry, Michelle. Does inner work help with post-exertional malaise? That is my most frustrating symptom right now. Absolutely. Just gonna take a few deep breaths here. It's so easy again, just for anybody who's watching this, to get caught up, and then it's always great to just take a few moments to just stop and feel what's here. So for myself specifically, if I'm talking a lot, can get up in the head, out of the body. So anybody can just take a moment just to feel. It's so easy to just want to talk about the work all the time. But what's the right work to do? How should I do this? I'm just speaking in general here. This is what we all do. But then it's all actually about stopping and feeling and doing it. So here's an opportunity to just take a few breaths. All right, let's answer your question, Michelle. So, firstly, post-exertional malaise, I experienced that a lot myself. That was probably the main thing that I was dealing with, was exerting myself and then this crash afterwards, or this flare-up. And it's so what I'm saying here most definitely applies to that, because that's what I was working through. And again, it really doesn't matter what we label the symptom as. So just, for somebody, it might be something else. It might be their flare up. There's often a thing about post-exertional malaise that it's such a hallmark symptom of chronic fatigue syndrome or long COVID. I remember it was such a crucial thing if I was watching somebody's recovery story, but they didn't have post-exertional malaise. It's like it wasn't the same thing that I was going through. But it's just labeling, right? It's what's happening is there's there's stuff going on in the body, and it's often got to do with this hyper alert, stressed out state in the body, and it kind of leads to these flare ups. And absolutely, the way to deal with it was 100% the inner work, the meditation, and the not resisting. It's like if a flare up starts happening, that's the perfect time. If a post exertional malaise or whatever starts happening, that's the perfect time to stop. And I spoke a little bit about this whole process at the start of the live. So if anybody wants a nice guide through how to do this, you can watch the replay. I'll put it up. But just briefly, feeling into what am I resisting? What about this flare up, this post exertional malaise is so uncomfortable? I'm resisting something here. And can I feel into that? And often it can be helpful to start. I'm just thinking back how I used to do it, like with something like meditating on the breath, just to kind of gather attention a bit. So things can become really scattered. So I used to do that sometimes. So just like, can I just notice my breath for 5 minutes? Just relax the sensations of the breath. However, I will also say that can be frustrating, especially if we're going through a flare-up or something. Maybe attention is too scattered, and it can be frustrating if we're trying to force attention onto the breath. So, take that lightly. And just feeling into the body is what's the most helpful. And anything that really feels super uncomfortable, can we just rest attention there? Can we just feel that as fully as possible and welcome it and let it be there? So all of that work absolutely applies to post-exertional malaise. And what are the beliefs about this? So, this is a flare-up. This is going to lead to a big crash. I have to get rid of this post-exertional malaise before I'm going to recover. There's often a lot of sticky beliefs there. Just noticing that. Okay. I've had a few questions about belief work, and belief work, the way I have experienced it myself, and again, there's in Angelo's book, there's a great chapter on beliefs, but it can often be quite a passive process in just being willing to see what beliefs we hold. It can kind of just come up on its own. So if we say to us, what beliefs do I have about this symptom? And if we just kind of open up to it a bit, it can be like, oh, okay, I've got a belief that this was caused by this, or this is going to lead to a crash. And then it can be really helpful to dig into the deeper beliefs. So, okay, so if I believe that, why do I believe that? Okay, I believe that, what's happened in the past is going to definitely happen again, or I believe I know what's going to happen in the future. And I believe whatever beliefs come up about the symptoms, I believe that this shouldn't be here, right? That this is a sign of a chronic illness, whatever. Some of the beliefs can seem crazy to let go of, but those are often the most freeing. And it can take a while, but often when we see a belief that's really we're not willing to let go of, and it can feel like crazy to let go of, that's what's keeping us stuck. But I would say for anybody, whatever symptom or whatever you're experiencing, and you're thinking, is what I talk about applicable to that specific thing? Absolutely. It's because it's never the thing itself that's the problem. That's the key of what I talk about here. Is it's the resistance. So it doesn't matter what we're going through. Can we work? That's why this whole awakening, end of suffering thing is about resistance. It's if we get to the root of resistance, that's what causing all the problem. So yeah. Hi, Nikki. Nice to see you here. I've had a setback after 8 weeks of no symptoms. I've had long COVID for 15 months. I'm having massive resistance with meditation, feeling in a state of terror at times throughout the day. So, what you're going through, I would say, is completely a natural part of the process. And it can be so frustrating and a part of us that really doesn't like it, especially if, as you say, you've had a great period of 8 weeks. Um, what can start to happen with meditation and doing this inner work is whenever we have um, whenever we have periods of more openness and uh, you can say like presence or peace of mind, um, specifically with meditation and this inner work practice. And then we can have a period where things feel light and not a lot of resistance, and that it will often be followed by some really intense contraction, resistance, emotions. It's kind of like we're opening the door for this repressed material to come out. And the key here is that is absolutely necessary. It needs to come out. It needs to be felt, because when it's still repressed, it's like that's what's stopping us from feeling. That's what's driving the resistance, right? It's unconscious material that's causing us to carry on suffering. And then you can have a period of openness, and that kind of gives the space for this repressed content to come out. And it can feel like resistance, it can feel like symptoms, it can feel like emotions, it can feel intense, overwhelming, scary. The key here is there's nothing you need to do about it, right? There's nothing that you've done wrong. So often, especially if we, seeing this through the lens of our chronic illness, it's like I was doing so well in my recovery, and now I've, done something wrong, and I'm back having a crash again. I thought I was past this, but really, that's what needs to happen. And again, there's nothing you need to do about it, except experience it, except give it space, right? That's what I would say is give it space. So, can you feel into the resistance itself, right? And it can be difficult, right? There's often times where I can feel that kind of contraction resistance coming up for a few days in myself. And it's so gripping that I will distract, like you say, resistance to meditation. You don't want to sit and feel it. But eventually, that's all you need to do is just kind of, if there's resistance, there's resistance. Maybe just go sit in nature for a bit. That's something I would do as well on those really difficult days. Just go sit in nature a little bit. Some things that just calm the nervous system a bit, and then just allow whatever needs to come up to come up. And again, just knowing that what's going on is not. That's a good sign, right? It's it's difficult. It's difficult, but it's an important part. It's like this stuff needs to come up and out um, on this journey until there's kind of, if I talk about the deeper aspects of awakening and the end of suffering, it's like there can be an initial period of awakening, of openness, of flow and presence. And then what comes next is the really difficult stuff. The Angelo DeLulo calls it the shadow work, the deep emotion, everything in us that had been repressed, that was stopping us from feeling that peace, then needs to be processed. It's the next part of it. But even on, if we're not looking at the deeper side of it, just in this path itself, the recovery path, it's the same. It's like whenever there's periods of, peace or whatever, things are going well, and then one of these days comes. It's like these are um, a key part of the recovery journey. So just give it a space if you can. Kind of be kind to yourself and to the experience. It's like, it's okay. This is really difficult today. I'm resisting a lot today. Um, I have had many days like that where the last thing I want to do is just sit and feel. And it's like, okay, what I'm actually feeling is just really strong resistance. And it needs to come up and out. So yeah, there's not a lot that needs to be done. Just doesn't need to be analyzed. It doesn't need to be, what does this mean? It's just a part of it, right? It's just stuff that comes up. So Michelle, what does it feel like to let go of a belief? I can say I let go, but often I don't feel it's true. That's a good question. So if I just speak from my personal experience, kind of when we see a belief as a belief, that's kind of the most important step, right? Just to see where we're holding from, and then we're more aware of that, and maybe slowly over time, because there's a lot of beliefs that don't just drop like that, right? But it's becoming aware of the beliefs, so they're no longer driving us from behind subconsciously, right? Because when we're not aware of the beliefs, we're acting unconsciously on the beliefs. So the first step is, and the belief work can really be passive as well. You know, it can be just feeling. We can easily get caught up in the mind about how do I do this work, you know, overcomplicating it. Just feeling, beliefs can just dissolve through feeling, right? So but doing a little bit of active inquiry and digging can be really helpful as well to see a belief drop away. So if I think to myself, like a belief like this shouldn't be here, when I'm feeling something really uncomfortable, like asking myself, what do I believe about this, and saying this shouldn't be here, you know, this is bad, or believing that, you know, now I'm going to feel good all the time because, like, oh, this is a crash, and this, why is this such a problem? Because I believed I was going to feel good all the time. And just realizing, oh, that belief is what's really making this difficult. Okay, and just being aware of that, then it's kind of like, if those thoughts start to come again, it's like we're more aware of it. So sometimes the belief is sticky, right? It keeps coming up, but again, it's just becoming more aware of it. And sometimes the belief will kind of just dissolve, and yeah, inquiry is helpful, and feeling is helpful. Just like, okay, what do I feel? What if I let go of that belief? This can be good. Like, what do I feel then? So, say a really strongly held belief of, you know, I've got this chronic illness that's so difficult to recover from. That's a belief. What if I let go of that? And again, like, this can feel really uncomfortable, and what happens is when it's like a deeply identified belief, it's like you don't even, it feels like you can't even question it. It's like, what, and it can feel, what's the word? like a threat. Um, if you do that belief, it's threatening. It's like you have to defend it. Those are the strong beliefs that are keeping us stuck. Those beliefs that you feel like you have to defend. And it can be interesting if we just notice something that makes us feel like we're defending something, an identity, a belief. It's like, what's triggering this? Because that's showing you there's a belief there, right? So if something brings up that feeling in you of whatever, it's like, oh my gosh, that's what's causing me to feel like that? What am I defending here? And then what if I let go of that? What does that bring up? Can you feel through that? What if I just let go of that belief, right? And again, maybe you don't completely let go of the belief, but it's just that work is really helpful. That's my take on it. Hey, Anthony, welcome. Nice to see you. Don't think you've missed one yet. Nikki, glad it's helpful. You're very welcome. Sometimes I start to feel a lot of sadness coming up, but I'm not sure if the sadness is due to the symptoms or if it's an emotion I am releasing. Therefore, it's hard to know if the sadness is resistance. So in that kind of situation, Anthony, I would say it doesn't matter what's bringing up the emotion, really. Whether it's sadness caused by the symptoms or if it's emotional release, we can often get stuck in the mind about understanding that or whatever. What's really it's about is life will kind of this emotion work that I talk about, this emotion processing, the difficult stuff. Often the best way to go about it is what life brings up. So it really doesn't matter where it comes from, right? So if it's about symptoms, it could be like for me, like the emotions brought up by what if I'm never going to recover? I could say that's caused by symptoms, but what's generally happening is the emotion is there that needs to be experienced, and then something triggers it. And I was talking to somebody the other day about this, and they were like, their fear keeps on getting triggered by all of these different things. And it really doesn't matter what's actually triggering the fear. It's like there's fear, and that's what needs to be felt. And something that triggers the fear is fine. It's great, actually. It brings up the fear. And then it's like that's the work is, can you let that up? So if you're feeling sadness due to the symptoms or not due to the symptoms, either way, it's fine. Even resistance, if we feel resistance, that's what needs to be felt. So if you're feeling sadness, just give it space and don't try to do too much about it, right? Just that's if I think, because that's what a lot of my work that I do now is the deeper emotion work in all aspects of life, right? It's like anything that triggers you in life it's because there's something that needs to be felt there. So so just speaking from my personal experience here, if I something brings up some emotion, and nowadays the response maybe a little bit at first like, whoa, that's uncomfortable, and then it's like, oh great, here's the emotion work, right? It's coming to you, right? You don't have to. Sometimes you want to do emotion work and maybe you're feeling numb to it, and then when something triggers you, that's what you want. And I can feel there's nothing to do about the emotion, right? There's a natural tendency to, what to do about this. A lot of like deep sadness or grief or like heartbreak, that kind of thing. There's nothing to be done about it except really feeling it, and it can be really difficult. Like as soon as I touch into it in a deep level, it's like then a thought will come, okay, maybe I can do this, maybe I can do that. Um, but it's really just about pure feeling, um, and letting the thoughts come and go. But whatever deep emotion it is often we learn if there's emotion, if we're feeling deep emotions, we must talk about it and express it, and that's fine. But from my own experience, I can feel that when I'm doing that, it's because I really don't want to feel it. So if I'm experiencing a deep emotion and I'd rather talk to somebody about it, again, I'm not saying that's a problem. That's fine. But from my own experience, it's because it's a way of not wanting to feel that, right? So um, it's like maybe if I talk about this, it'll make it okay, and then I don't have to feel that. It will soothe the emotion. But really, the most freeing thing to do, and when I am really able to feel into the depth of that grief or sadness or whatever, it's such aliveness. It's such vulnerability, and it's like this is what I really wanted, right? It's aliveness in that sense. It's part of the human experience, and you really giving ourselves that permission to feel those intense emotions is such a relief. And yeah, that is just speaking from my personal experience on it. And vulnerability is um, such a key um, like aspect of this. And for me, it's like the key orientation, right? Is what I'm trying to orient to is how can I be completely vulnerable here, completely no agenda, just absolutely vulnerable to whatever the moment presents. And it can be a great practice to do in um, difficult situations or social situations. Um, how can I be completely vulnerable here? Like often when we're in an uncomfortable social situation, we're saying, we're thinking, I want to look like this. I want to. This is uncomfortable. You've got to protect ourselves. We're always trying to. We're putting up barriers without even realizing it. To be in an uncomfortable situation and try to orient towards vulnerability, of having absolutely no, what it really feels like, if I talk about for myself what vulnerability feels like, is it feels like being completely out of the head of thoughts, right? And it can feel scary. You feel vulnerable. It's like just purely being present, what's here, um, especially in a situation with somebody else, right? If you can just fully give yourself to what they're saying and have no preparation for what to say next, just fully in the moment, it's like complete vulnerability. Um, yeah, try it. But vulnerability is a incredible thing to orient to, right? So authenticity and vulnerability, like that can be the work, right? A massive aspect of the work is how can I be completely vulnerable here? I'm not trying to make something happen. And for myself, it can be difficult, right? A lot of the times there's these natural tendencies of trying to put on a certain image or trying to come across a certain way. But can you just be completely vulnerable and no agenda? Um, can be scary. Clarifies what I was already practicing. I'm glad. Yeah, that's the thing. Is the emotion work is it's just it's just feeling, right? And as you said, about emotional releasing. So it's just wherever it comes from, it's fine. Michelle, thanks, Carl. I'm such a concrete thinker. I like steps to get better. Letting go of being concrete and being more abstract is challenging. Absolutely, Michelle. Aren't we all, right? I mean, obviously, everybody's. different, and some people are more intuitive and not. But this whole journey of letting go of resistance, of even the deeper aspects of the awakening journey, it's all about the mind wants a path, the ego wants steps, because it's all about knowing and control, right? If it's complete unknown and no control, that's what's there once we completely give up resistance, and that's what the mind greatly fears, right? It wants to know, but like this deeper work of just feeling, it's kind of getting out of the known. It's like, I don't know what this is going to lead to, right? Giving myself fully to these symptoms, these emotions, surrendering. I don't know, and there's a part of us, that resistance part of us, that's its greatest fear, right? So it's exactly that, and it's not just you, right? It's what this whole journey is about. Can we let go of and just starting with awareness is great. Like as you said, you realizing that you want steps and stuff, but just to say it's not a personal thing, right? We're all going to be on different scales here, but it's a lot of just how the mind and the ego structures work. Of once a step by step understanding path of how this is going to play out. What is the recovery path, and it's completely. It's diving into the unknown, right? It's letting go, surrender. So yeah, but as you said, hello resistance. You're aware of that, so great. Anthony, I heard a great quote that describes how symptoms and emotions change and flare up and down along a journey, and how when you start having good days, the bad days can feel worse than before due to the contrast. Absolutely. It's like a pendulum swinging from dark to light. The brighter the light shines, the darker the shadow it casts. I think that is why when we flare up, it's so easy to fall back into the loop, as it seems harder to deal with after having the peaceful light days. That's great, Anthony. Thanks for sharing that. It's absolutely that. It's kind of exactly what I was talking about earlier. The same thing of when we have the lighter days, and the brighter the light shines, the darker the shadow it casts. That's what it's like with these peaceful light days. And again, it's not even. It's kind of like it gives that space for that darker stuff to come up, right? And it needs to be felt. So just being aware of that, and as you say, it's so difficult because of the contrast, right? It's like I had it. It feels like you're just being kicked out of heaven in a sense of I had it, and now I'm in the dark days, but it can feel worse because you've had this taste of this peaceful lightness. But the way forward is that dark stuff needs to come up, right? But that's a great analogy for it. I've heard things talked about as well. It's like a pendulum as well, swinging, and at first it's really extreme, and it's a roller coaster. And what it's about is this piece is really about the openness to whatever experience arises. But the only way there is through the extremes, right? So it starts with experiencing the extremes, and the more we process that, and the more we learn to not resist that, it's less of a roller coaster, because those resistance patterns kind of start dissolving, and the stuff gets processed. And you never know what's going to happen, right? You could feel like you're, kind of really evening out, and then boom, there's massive difficult day. But it's really, yeah, the more we feel through those periods, it kind of like settles, and it's less extreme. And there's still subtle things that get triggered, and it becomes more of a subtle feeling. Oh, okay, this I'm still triggered there, but it's less extreme. You know, I guess that's just from my experience and some of it, but it's a great analogy. That. All right, so I think we've kind of gotten through most of the questions there. There's been some good questions, guys. So I think we're gonna start wrapping it up. So we can finish it off with a guided meditation. I really enjoy that. So I'll give a few minutes if there's any more questions. If anybody, we can do like some quick fire. I've been giving mostly long answers, which is great. But if there's a few short questions, I will just give an answer, and then we can do some meditation. Hi, Laurie. I got COVID in 2020, and I was getting no help from all my doctors. I started practicing the things you talked about 2 months ago, and I think it's helping. I'm really glad to hear that. And yeah, it's sometimes that's where we end up is we try those paths with the doctors, and then somehow you find your way into somebody sharing the stuff, and it's it really can be what's needed, right? So I'm glad it's helping. You're welcome, Nikki. I'm glad it's helpful. All right, so it looks like we're done with the questions. So I'll lead us through a little guided meditation. I appreciate you sharing these things. I'm glad to hear that, Laurie. I really enjoy just sharing and working with you guys and talking these live streams. They're wonderful. So it's definitely a pleasure. All right, so let's start by taking a few moments to just settle. Maybe just notice the breath for a bit. Notice the entirety of the breath. It's maybe you feel it in the stomach, the chest, at the nose. Just kind of settling attention into the body a bit. Maybe taking a few deeper breaths, but really you're not trying to control the breath. However it appears is fine. If it's short and ragged, that's fine. If it's deep and long and calm, that's fine. Just noticing the sensations of breathing. And we can kind of just let attention settle in the body. Can scan through if there's any places of tension. If there are, that's fine. We don't need to get rid of it. You can just let attention rest in the contraction or the tension itself. If there's pain or tightness anywhere, we can relax it in the sense that often we're actively holding it, but we don't need to. We can just explore it as it is. Can fill in with the contact points of your body, and maybe the chair, maybe your feet on the floor, maybe the back of the chair, your hands. Just let attention explore the body sense. See if you can relax the labels. Just the pure sensation itself. It's completely unknown. We have so many labels for different sensations, and that's fine. But if we really just feel into the raw experience of sensation, just feel. It's a complete mystery. And if thoughts come and go, that's fine. There's nothing that's not welcome here. We're really not fighting thoughts. Often we feel like that's what we need to do in meditation. But the key is really not to fight anything. Thoughts are thoughts. They'll come and they'll go. There's nothing that needs to be done about them. As it is with sensation, we can notice that sensation is constantly changing, fluctuating. Our body and our attention are drawn to different sensations. And then attention is drawn to a different sensation in the body. And then that's changing. All we want is to maintain a slight alertness to whatever is happening. We have no agenda. And if there's an agenda, that's fine. That's just what's happening. We're really not trying to make anything happen. It's really a surrender to the present moment just as it is. Can you surrender to experience, however it wishes to come forward? Can you drop any narratives? What's just here, now? Doesn't matter what we're planning on doing later. Doesn't matter what's brought us into this moment, what's happened before this. So often we're carrying this running narrative with us throughout the day. But can we use this time to just explore what's right here now? What if we drop the narrative? Just explore that. What does attention itself feel like? Or the place that it feels like we're controlling attention from? If there's a thought, that can be our entry point. Don't worry about the content of the thought. Can you slow it down and investigate the feeling of a thought? What is the texture of a thought? Can you explore that? And maybe fill into what's watching the thought. What does that feel like? And if the next thought comes, that's great. I don't know what this means. It doesn't make sense. What does that feel like? What's primary to the thoughts? It's here before a thought, during a thought, after a thought. It's what the thought's made of. It's really about not doing. What's here before we start doing and trying to change and all of that is just a settling as we feel into thoughts and feeling into what's always here. And then just rest. And then if the next thought comes, that's fine. We're really moving towards thoughts and not away from them. A thought is just like a movement in consciousness. Can we just explore that movement? And just let attention go naturally where it's called. maybe notice the sense of the body as a field of sensation. So a wide feeling into sensation. Feeling of the sensation of the body as a whole. Just rest there. Can sometimes help to feel like we're just feeling into a sense just wider than the body. Feeling into the body and the space just around it. You can feel that we can't really feel the edges of the sensation. It's just really a field of sensation. And for the last minute or so, we can just relax any effort at all. And just rest. Let the mind do whatever it wants. And then just remember that we can stop and feel into this at any point in our day. Always just starting where we're at, whatever feels most prominent in attention. Just stop and explore that. All right. Okay, so that's the guided meditation. And as I said, just remember that at any moment we can just stop and slow down. Start with the body. Feel into the thoughts. And just slow down the thoughts. What does each thought feel like? We can be so caught up in what the thoughts are saying, but let's just feel into the thoughts themselves. All right, so I think we'll call it there. Thanks, everyone. Cheers, Anthony. Nice to see you again. yeah, best of luck to everyone. Thanks for all the great questions, guys. It was a lot of good questions. It's a good one. Thanks, Laurie. Nice to have you here. Cheers, Nikki. Best of luck to you too. All right, everyone. Cheers. Best of luck. Lots of love to everyone.